The first signal. A universe awaits. Commander Nadia Vargas stood before the vast star map of the galaxy, her brow furrowed in concentration. Her fingers hovered over the holographic controls of the ship's navigation system, as the deep hum of the engine resonated beneath her feet. The Celestial Dawn, Earth's most advanced exploratory ship, was now nearing the outer edges of human space. The mission was simple: find new worlds, chart unknown territories, and ensure the survival of humanity beyond the stars. What wasn't expected, however, was the strange anomaly that had begun to pulse on their sensors. "Something's out there," Nadia muttered under her breath, almost to herself. Lieutenant Jake Reed, her second-in-command, looked up from his console. He had noticed it too. The odd pattern of energy readings. It wasn't natural, and it wasn't from any known source. His face grew tense as he tapped his communicator. "Commander, you might want to see this," Jake called out, his voice laced with a quiet urgency. Nadia walked over and looked at the data on his screen. The coordinates pointed to a distant sector, far outside their mission's intended route. But that wasn't the strange part. It was the signal. It was repeating at regular intervals, almost like a message. But there were no known races, no civilizations out here. Earth had already mapped out the nearest star systems. And yet, here it was, an unknown signal emanating from deep space. Who would be out here? Nadia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The hair on the back of her neck prickled with unease. They were alone, weren't they? Jake hesitated, running the calculations in his mind. "Maybe it's a distress signal, or maybe it's a trap," he suggested. Nadia took a deep breath. The air on the ship was thin, and her thoughts felt heavy. For all the technology Earth had developed, for all the advanced tools at their disposal, humanity was still a fledgling species in the vast, uncaring universe. No one had ever truly expected to find anything out here. The possibility of encountering another advanced civilization was something of a pipe dream, a romantic notion of explorers, not a reality. But as the signal pulsed again, Nadia felt a deep shiver in her bones. This was something new. The decision. "Bring up the signal's source," she commanded. The star map shifted, zooming in on the distant quadrant. It was a star system they hadn't even cataloged yet. Nadia narrowed her eyes as she analyzed the data. The system was home to 2 planets, both in the habitable zone of their sun. But what stood out was the faint energy signature coming from the larger planet, the one with an atmosphere that seemed, oddly enough, to match Earth's own. "This isn't a coincidence," Nadia said aloud, as much to herself as to her crew. "This is no natural phenomenon. Are we going to investigate it, Commander?" Lieutenant Reed asked, his voice now steady, though it carried a trace of excitement. Nadia hesitated. Earth had only recently established a presence beyond its home solar system. The exploration fleet was new, small, and untested. If they ventured into this unknown system, there was no telling what they might encounter. It could be a primitive alien civilization, or worse, an aggressive one. But the thrill of discovery was something every explorer longed for. The unknown had always been humanity's greatest challenge, and it was what made explorers like her take risks. "Set course for the signal," she ordered firmly. A dangerous gamble. As the Celestial Dawn altered course, Nadia felt a strange sensation, a gnawing sense of foreboding creeping up her spine. Her crew was nervous too, despite their professionalism. The hum of the engines felt louder, the air heavier, as if the ship itself were aware of the risk. For the next few hours, they navigated through uncharted space. Stars flickered in the distance, cold and distant. The silence in the ship was only broken by the occasional beeping of the sensors and the low, rhythmic sound of the ship's engines. Nadia paced back and forth in the command center, her mind racing with thoughts of what might lie ahead. "We're getting closer to the signal," Lieutenant Reed reported. "There's something strange." His voice was tinged with uncertainty. The tension in the air was palpable. Nadia knew that the crew was expecting something. A visual cue, a sign of life, a glimpse of whatever was out there. But the more they approached, the more the signal seemed to distort, almost like it was changing direction, or perhaps hiding. Adjust course slightly. I don't like how the signal is shifting, Nadia ordered. Just as the ship turned slightly, the stars ahead flickered in a sudden burst of brightness. It wasn't a star or a supernova. This was something different. Nadia's heart skipped a beat as the ship's sensors went wild. A large object had appeared, seemingly out of nowhere, like a shadow rising from the depths of space. "Commander, what is that?" Jake asked, his voice barely a whisper. Nadia's breath caught in her throat. The object was massive, too massive to be anything natural. A ship, perhaps, but it was nothing like anything they had ever seen. Its shape was angular, jagged, and unnervingly sleek, as if designed by a mind that thought in dimensions they couldn't comprehend. The ship's surface seemed to absorb light, casting an eerie, almost liquid blackness into the surrounding space. "It's a ship," Nadia said slowly, trying to make sense of the impossible. "And it's not ours." An encounter with the unknown. The message they had been tracking was coming from that ship. But why? What was its purpose? Was it a ship of peace or one of conquest? Nadia felt the weight of her decision press down on her. She was about to make contact with the unknown, a choice that could change everything. It could be the discovery of a lifetime, or a catastrophe that would seal humanity's fate. She steadied herself, taking a deep breath. "Prepare for communication," she ordered. "We're going to find out who, or what, is out there." As she spoke, the large black ship loomed closer, its ominous presence filling the viewports. The crew fell silent, awaiting the next move. And in that moment, Nadia knew one thing for sure. The universe was not as empty as they had once believed, and Earth's place in it was about to change forever. The dark encounter, the first meeting. As the celestial dawn drifted closer to the strange alien vessel, the crew held their breath, their eyes glued to the view screens. The massive ship, black as the void itself, hovered just outside their range, almost as if it were watching them. Its surface was smooth, devoid of markings or any recognizable features. No signs of weapons, no engines visible. It was as if the ship had been designed to remain unseen, lurking in the dark reaches of space. "Why isn't it moving?" Lieutenant Reed asked, his voice tense, though his curiosity was palpable. "It doesn't look like it's preparing to engage us. Maybe it's waiting." Commander Nadia Vargas studied the massive craft, her instincts screaming that something wasn't right. A ship of that size, that advanced, should have been actively scanning their ship or preparing for a possible attack. Yet it remained still, silent. The only movement came from the soft flickers of energy emanating from the ship, pulsing in an eerie rhythm that seemed almost deliberate. Nadia's fingers hovered over the ship's comms console. She had to make a choice, initiate contact or continue to wait. Every second that passed increased the weight of the decision. Was this a peaceful alien race reaching out to humanity, or was it the opening move of something far more dangerous? "Prepare for communication," Nadia ordered, her voice steady despite the rush of adrenaline coursing through her. "Send a message. Let's see if we can understand what they want." A mysterious response. As the words of the message were sent, the crew watched in silence. Nadia didn't know what to expect. Would the message be returned in the form of a direct response, or would they encounter something even stranger? The seconds stretched into minutes, the tension building with every passing moment. Then, just as the crew began to wonder if their signal had been lost, the ship's sensors flared to life. A soft hum filled the room, growing louder as the alien ship sent out a reply. The message wasn't in any language they recognized, not even a form of communication they could decipher. But it wasn't just a series of random signals. The ship's systems began to process the incoming data. The words were jumbled, but the tone was clear, urgent, almost desperate. "Can you translate it?" Jake asked, his eyes glued to his console, his fingers flying over the keys as he worked to decode the message. "We're getting something. Wait. It's a sequence, one that repeats every few seconds," said Ensign Kim, a junior officer, her voice barely above a whisper. "It looks like a pattern. A code." Nadia stood behind her crew, her heart pounding. She had seen first contact scenarios in simulations, but none had prepared her for this moment. The sheer scale of what was happening, what they were about to uncover, was beyond any of their wildest imaginations. Who were these beings, and why had they chosen this moment to make their presence known? The pattern flickered again, and Jake's fingers froze over his console. "It's not a message in words," he said slowly, as if piecing together a puzzle. "It's a frequency. It's not communicating with us the way we expected. It's manipulating our systems, sending out pulses." A terrifying revelation. The room fell silent. Nadia could hear her own heartbeat thudding in her ears. The alien ship wasn't just sending signals. It was probing their systems, testing their defenses, learning about their technology. "Shut down the systems. Now," she ordered sharply. The crew scrambled, following her orders, but the ship's systems were already under the influence of the alien vessel's pulse. It was like a hacker breaking into their most secure files. They could fight back, but every action they took seemed to delay the inevitable. This ship was much more advanced, and it understood them in ways they couldn't even comprehend. "We're losing control of the navigation systems," Ensign Kim reported. "It's as if our ship is responding to the signals. We can't move it." "Status on our comms?" Nadia asked, her voice hard as steel. The officer at the communication station looked up, panic creeping into their eyes. "We can't send out anything. The systems locked us out. The signal is completely overriding our controls." Nadia cursed under her breath. They were being taken over by an alien ship without even knowing its purpose. Every part of her mind screamed to fight back, to defend humanity's right to space, but they were outmatched. They had nothing that could fight this kind of technology. It was as if the ship itself had wrapped a net around the celestial dawn, and they were helpless in its grasp. For a moment, Nadia felt the cold weight of fear settle into her chest. Was this it? Was this the end of humanity's expansion into space? Could they survive this encounter, or had they walked into a trap? And then, just as suddenly as it had started, the pulse stopped. "Wait," Jake said, his fingers still hovering over his console. I think it's waiting for us to respond." It stopped the interference, almost like it's giving us a chance. Nadia's eyes narrowed. The alien ship wasn't trying to destroy them. No, it was trying to make contact in its own strange way. But why? And more importantly, what did they want? A daring decision. After what seemed like an eternity of silence, Nadia looked at her crew, her resolve hardening. They couldn't sit idly by. If humanity was to survive, they would need to understand this alien race, and fast. "Initiate a communication channel," Nadia said. "We're going to speak to them, no matter how strange their methods may be. This could be humanity's chance to make history, and we're not going to let it slip away." Her voice was calm, but inside, her thoughts raced. She had made her decision. They would communicate with this alien race, no matter how difficult or dangerous it might be. The unknown would not defeat them. As the crew set to work, the alien ship remained motionless in the distance, its dark silhouette looming like an enigma. The story of humanity's first true encounter with an alien species was about to unfold, and Nadia was determined to be at the center of it. The Silent Alliance, a deal with the unknown. The crew of the Celestial Dawn sat in a tense silence as the alien ship, still hovering at the edge of their view, seemed to be waiting, almost as if it were giving them time to figure out their next move. For Commander Nadia Vargas, every passing second felt like an eternity. The air inside the ship was thick with anticipation, and every officer aboard could feel the weight of history pressing down on them. This was it, the moment that would define humanity's future. "Commander," Jake Reed said, breaking the silence. "I've been scanning their systems. Whatever that ship is, it's not just observing us. It's trying to communicate on a level we don't fully understand yet." Nadia nodded, her fingers twitching nervously at her side. "I know. We've got no time to waste. We need to figure out how to respond, or we could be stuck in a staring contest with a civilization far more advanced than we are." A low beep echoed through the control room, followed by a flashing light on the communications console. The alien ship had initiated another signal. This time, it was stronger, more direct. Nadia's heart skipped a beat. "Send the response," she ordered. "Try to sync with their frequency. We need to send a message back." As the crew worked quickly to align their communications with the alien signal, Nadia watched the ship's movements closely. The massive vessel remained unmoving in space, yet something about its presence felt almost alive. As if it were attuned to the ship's every movement, reacting to their actions before they even had a chance to make them. "Message sent," Ensign Kim reported, her voice barely audible. "They're receiving it. Let's hope they understand." The unexpected reply. Moments later, the comms console flashed again. The frequency had changed. This time, there were no pulses or interference. Instead, a clear, articulate voice echoed through the bridge, its tone smooth but unearthly, filled with an eerie calm. "Humanity," the voice said, its pronunciation precise yet strange. "We have observed your kind for many cycles. Your curiosity is both your strength and your weakness. You have ventured far from your cradle of dust, and you now seek answers to questions you are not prepared to understand." The voice paused, almost as if it were weighing its next words carefully. "Do you wish to continue? Are you ready to learn the truths of the universe, or would you rather remain in the dark, like so many civilizations before you?" The crew was silent, stunned by the calmness and authority of the message. Nadia's mind raced as she tried to comprehend what had just been said. Observed. For cycles? The realization hit her like a hammer. This wasn't a random encounter. This alien race had been watching humanity for a long time. How long have you been watching us?" Nadia asked, her voice steady despite the shock that rippled through her. The alien voice responded almost immediately, as if it had been waiting for this very question. "Longer than you have known space," it said. "You are not the first species to rise, but you may be the first to refuse the invitation. The choice is yours, Commander." Nadia felt a chill run down her spine. The alien didn't seem threatening, but there was something unsettling about their words. This was not the hopeful first contact with benevolent explorers that humanity had imagined for centuries. No, this was something far more complicated. A dangerous offer. Before Nadia could respond, the alien voice continued. "You are faced with a decision, humanity. A decision that will either elevate your species or seal its fate. We offer you an alliance. Join us, and you will be given the tools to transcend your limitations. Your technology, your knowledge, everything you have worked for, will be enhanced. You will become part of a collective knowledge far greater than your own." The silence on the bridge was deafening. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. An alliance with an alien race. It sounded too good to be true, but there was a catch, of course. There was always a catch. "What do you mean by collective knowledge?" Nadia asked cautiously, trying to keep her voice neutral. The alien responded quickly, its tone almost amused. "The collective is a union of civilizations that have chosen to advance together, sharing their strengths, knowledge, and technology. It is a path that many have taken before you, but it comes at a cost." "What cost?" Jake asked, his voice tight with suspicion. The alien voice was quiet for a moment before it answered. "Freedom. To join the collective is to become part of something greater, but you will no longer be truly independent. You will share your thoughts, your progress, your decisions with the collective mind. Your individuality will be subsumed by the whole." Nadia's heart pounded in her chest. The offer was tempting, yes, But at what cost? Would humanity give up its freedom for the chance to advance? To merge with an alien collective meant losing a part of what made them human, something that could never be undone. The risk of refusal. Nadia's mind raced. The decision she faced now wasn't just about survival. It was about the very soul of humanity. Could they afford to join the collective with all the benefits it promised? Or would they resist, risking annihilation but keeping their freedom? "Commander," Jake's voice broke through her thoughts. "What do we do?" Nadia took a deep breath. The weight of her decision felt like 1,000 tons on her shoulders. If they refused, would the alien race view them as a threat? Would they face the same fate as the other civilizations that had declined the collective's offer? "We don't know enough to make that decision yet," she said finally, her voice steady. "We need more information. We're not rushing into this blindly." She turned to the comms station. "Tell them we need time to consider." For a moment, the silence in the room felt like 1,000 years. Then the alien voice responded, its tone no longer patient. "You have 1 cycle to decide," it said coldly. "After that, you will be tested. If you are worthy, you will be allowed to join. If not, you will be destroyed." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving the crew in stunned silence. A choice too large. Nadia's heart raced. The implications of the alien's words were clear. They weren't offering friendship. They were giving an ultimatum, one that carried unimaginable consequences. The celestial dawn was alone, in the vastness of space, faced with a choice that no human could have ever predicted. How do we even begin to prepare for something like this? Ensign Kim whispered, her voice quivering. "They've been watching us for cycles. We don't even know what that means. How can we defend ourselves against an enemy that knows us better than we know ourselves?" Nadia stood at the front of the bridge, looking out at the alien ship. Its dark silhouette still hung in the distance, ominous and silent. She knew that whatever happened next, humanity would be changed forever. But she couldn't let fear dictate their path. Humanity's greatest strength had always been its curiosity and its ability to adapt. "We'll find a way," Nadia said firmly. "We have no other choice." The test of will. Humanity's last stand. The crew of the Celestial Dawn had never felt more isolated than they did in that moment. The alien vessel, ominous and silent, loomed just beyond their reach, waiting for them to make a choice. In the cold void of space, time seemed to stretch and contract like a living thing, heavy with the knowledge that they had only 1 cycle to decide their fate. The choice that lay before them was more than just a political or technological decision. It was a moral one. Could humanity accept the offer of the collective, sacrificing its individuality and freedom for the promise of unimaginable power? Or would they reject it, risking extinction, but preserving the very essence of what made them human? Commander Nadia Vargas sat alone in her quarters, her hands clasped tightly together. The weight of her decision pressed on her chest like a vice, and for the first time since she'd taken command, she questioned whether she was truly ready to lead her people into this unknown. The weight of freedom. On the bridge, the crew was equally torn. Lieutenant Reed had been the first to voice his doubts. How can we even begin to think about joining something like the collective? They're offering us power, sure, but at what cost? We're talking about losing ourselves, our free will, our right to think, act, and evolve on our own. Jake's words had stuck with them. The idea of losing their individuality was a hard pill to swallow, and for many aboard the Celestial Dawn, the prospect of a life without autonomy seemed impossible. But there were others who saw the alien offer differently. "We can't fight this," Ensign Kim said, her voice filled with a quiet urgency. "Not alone. We're outmatched. If we refuse and they decide to test us, Earth won't stand a chance. We could lose everything. Our colonies, our cities, the future of our children." Her words hit hard, and a murmur of agreement spread through the room. Humanity had spent centuries struggling to get to this point, conquering the stars, mastering space travel, pushing the limits of what was possible. To simply throw all that away, to let Earth fall into darkness, was a terrifying thought. The idea of surviving, of joining a galactic collective that could elevate humanity beyond its limits, was tempting. But what would that really mean for the soul of their species? "Maybe we don't have to decide just yet," Nadia said, her voice calm but filled with resolve as she returned to the bridge. "Maybe we need to understand what kind of test they're talking about before we make any more decisions." The aliens' test. As the celestial dawn drifted through the cold expanse of space, Nadia's mind was consumed by the aliens' words. "If you are worthy, you will join us. If not, you will be destroyed." What did this test entail? Was it a challenge of intellect, strength, or something more sinister? The idea of facing an unknown trial sent a chill down her spine, but Nadia knew that to understand their options, they would need to learn more. They didn't have much time. Less than a day had passed since the alien transmission, and Nadia had already made up her mind. They would send a response, but this time, the message would not be one of surrender. It would be a message of defiance. Humanity wasn't just going to lie down and accept its fate. "We're going to make them show us what they mean by a test," Nadia said, her voice steady. "Send the reply. Humanity is not afraid to face the unknown. We'll meet the challenge on our terms." The crew worked in silence, transmitting the message to the alien ship. As soon as the last words left their communications array, the bridge fell quiet. There was no immediate reply. For a moment, Nadia felt her stomach twist. Had they miscalculated? Were they walking straight into a trap? The test begins. Just as the tension reached its peak, the alien ship responded. The communication was simple. "Prepare yourselves." A jolt of energy surged through the celestial dawn, sending alarms blaring throughout the ship. The lights flickered, the systems scrambled, and the crew struggled to maintain their footing as the ship shook violently. "What's happening?" Nadia demanded, gripping the console in front of her as the shaking intensified. "It's the ship," Ensign Kim cried out. "It's changing the gravitational field around us." A deep, resonating hum echoed through the celestial dawn as the alien ship initiated a powerful field around their vessel. The force felt like it was coming from everywhere at once, crushing, bending, pulling, as if the fabric of reality itself was being manipulated. It was unlike anything the crew had ever felt. "This isn't a test of strength," Jake muttered, his face pale as he read the readings. "They're testing our resilience, our ability to withstand the unknown. It's psychological, Commander. They want to see if we can survive this, if we can hold our ground." Humanity's resolve. Nadia clenched her fists. She understood now. The alien test wasn't about fighting a battle in space or facing superior firepower. It was a test of human will, of their ability to endure, to persist, and to stand firm in the face of overwhelming odds. "Hold steady," Nadia ordered. "We're not giving in to this. All crew members, hold positions. Don't let the pressure get to you. We're human. We don't back down." The crew fought against the growing pressure. It felt like the very walls of the ship were closing in on them. The force continued to increase, the ship creaking under the strain. Yet, despite the suffocating pressure, Nadia felt something shift inside her. They had faced worse challenges before, on Earth, in the colonies, on distant planets. Humanity had survived wars, disasters, and trials that should have destroyed them. This was no different. "We can take this," Nadia whispered to herself. "We will take this." The tipping point. As the pressure reached its peak, Nadia saw something that hadn't been there moments before. A single, quiet beep, then another, and another. "Commander," Jake said urgently, his eyes wide. "It's stopping. The force field, it's dissipating." Indeed, as quickly as it had started, the gravitational pull eased, and the ship steadied. The systems returned to normal. The lights flickered once more and then remained steady. The crew let out a collective breath, stunned and exhausted but alive. "We did it," Ensign Kim breathed, her voice barely above a whisper. Nadia stood still, her heart racing, her body trembling with the aftermath of the test. She had known this moment would come. The aliens hadn't been testing their physical strength. They had been testing their ability to endure, to hold their ground no matter what. And humanity had passed. A new message flashed on the comms console. "You are worthy. Prepare to join us." Nadia closed her eyes for a moment, letting the words sink in. They had passed the first test. But there was something about the message, something in the phrasing, that sent another chill through her. Prepare to join us. What did that mean? Was this just the beginning? "Let's get ready," Nadia said quietly, her voice firm once more. "We need to be ready for whatever comes next. This isn't over yet." A glimmer of hope. Secrets beneath the surface. The Celestial Dawn was no longer just a ship. It had become humanity's last stand. The crew had survived the alien test, but the challenge was far from over. As they floated in the emptiness of space, a quiet tension settled over the bridge. The alien fleet remained in orbit, waiting for humanity's next move. Commander Nadia Vargas stood at the front of the bridge, her hands clasped tightly behind her back. Her mind raced with questions. What did it mean to join the collective? Was it truly an opportunity for humanity to reach new heights, or would it be the end of everything they had fought for? The alien message still echoed in her mind. "You are worthy. Prepare to join us." But what exactly did that mean? Joining the collective wasn't just about technology or power. It was about identity. About the very nature of what it meant to be human. An unexpected visitor. Before Nadia could ponder any further, the comms console lit up with an incoming transmission. It wasn't from the alien vessel. This time, it was from someone unexpected. Dr. Ezekiel Hayward, Earth's foremost quantum physicist, and the very scientist who had helped build the Celestial Dawn's defensive systems. "Commander," Dr. Hayward's voice crackled through the static. "You need to hear this. It's urgent." Nadia's brow furrowed in confusion. "Dr. Hayward, what's happening? We're in the middle of a—" "It's about the collective," Hayward interrupted. "There's something you don't know, something they've been hiding from us. I've discovered a way to communicate with their network, but we need to act quickly." Nadia turned to the communications officer. "Patch him through." A moment later, Dr. Hayward's image appeared on the main screen. His face was pale, his expression tense. "Listen closely," he said, his voice low. "I've been analyzing their transmissions for the past few hours. There's something I found that you won't like. The collective isn't just a union of civilizations. It's a massive network of shared consciousness, a hive mind. And those who join it don't just become part of the collective. They lose their autonomy completely." The dark truth. Nadia's heart sank. She had suspected something like this, but hearing it confirmed sent a shockwave of dread through her. The aliens weren't offering an alliance. They were offering assimilation. Humanity's individuality, its creativity, and its very spirit would be erased, replaced by the collective's shared consciousness. "They've been doing this for thousands of years," Dr. Hayward continued. "I found traces of their previous victims, other species who thought they could join the collective willingly. But once they did, they were absorbed, their minds and culture wiped clean." Nadia gritted her teeth. This was worse than she had imagined. The aliens weren't interested in alliances. They were predators, hunting for species to add to their collective mind. They didn't just conquer. They erased the essence of what made other civilizations unique. "But there's more," Hayward said, his voice gaining strength. "The collective doesn't just destroy those who refuse. They don't just wipe them out. They manipulate the very fabric of space-time to keep their prey in line. They've already begun. The gravitational anomalies you've been experiencing. That's them, testing our limits, seeing if we're vulnerable enough to break." Nadia's grip tightened on the armrest of her chair. She could feel the weight of the truth crashing down on her. The enemy they faced wasn't just stronger, it was more insidious. And if humanity wasn't careful, they would be subsumed into the collective, their minds erased in the blink of an eye. A glimmer of resistance. "But I found something," Dr. Hayward added, his eyes flicking to the side, as if to ensure no one else was listening. "There's a weakness. The collective relies on quantum entanglement to maintain its link between its members. If we disrupt their quantum network, we could sever the connection, disrupt the entire hive mind." Nadia's mind raced. A way to break the collective's control. Could it really be that simple? "We have the technology," Dr. Hayward said. "The Celestial Dawn is equipped with a prototype quantum disruptor, a device designed to jam entangled quantum particles. If we can deploy it in the right location, we can cause a cascade failure in their network. It would be like cutting off their communication, forcing them to abandon their efforts to assimilate us." Nadia's pulse quickened. This was it. The chance they'd been waiting for. But it wasn't going to be easy. The quantum disruptor was still experimental, and its effects were untested. Even worse, if they failed, the alien fleet would know they were actively resisting. It would put them in even greater danger. "Where would we need to deploy it?" Nadia asked, her voice sharp. "There's a vulnerability in their fleet's central vessel," Dr. Hayward replied. "The flagship. We've been tracking it. It's where their hive mind is centralized. If we can get close enough and deploy the disruptor there, we could sever their connection." The idea of infiltrating the enemy flagship sent a cold shiver down Nadia's spine. It would be a suicide mission. But if they didn't act now, they would lose everything. A plan of action. "We'll need a team," Nadia said decisively. "We'll get a small team on board the flagship. Ensign Kim, you're in charge of the quantum disruptor. You'll be the one to deploy it." Ensign Kim nodded, her face a mixture of determination and fear. "Understood, Commander." "And I'll go with you," Nadia added, her voice unwavering. "I'll lead the infiltration team. We'll get in and we'll get out, no matter what." The crew exchanged looks of shock, but there was no doubt in their minds. Nadia was the right person to lead them through this. The commander who had faced the unknown stood firm in the face of an alien ultimatum and held her ground against insurmountable odds. "We'll need to move fast," Jake Reed said. "The longer we wait, the closer they get to taking over." Nadia nodded. "Let's make sure humanity's future is decided by us, not by them." Infiltration. As the Celestial Dawn slowly approached the alien flagship, the crew prepared for what would be the most dangerous mission of their lives. They would infiltrate the heart of the collective's power and strike at its core. The plan was risky. The stakes were higher than ever, but there was no turning back. Nadia stood in the hatch bay, looking at the faces of the men and women who would be going with her. They weren't soldiers. They were scientists, engineers, and civilians, just like her. But they had something the collective could never take: the indomitable will to fight for what was theirs. "If we do this," Nadia said, her voice steady, "we do it together. For Earth, for humanity." With a final nod, the hatch doors opened, and the team boarded their stealth craft. Their mission had begun. The infiltration into the heart of the collective. The Celestial Dawn drifted silently in the vast emptiness, cloaked in the shimmering veil of its stealth systems. Inside the ship, the crew was preparing for their most dangerous mission yet: an assault on the flagship of the alien collective. They had just one chance to infiltrate the heart of the hive and disable the system that had controlled countless civilizations. Commander Nadia Vargas stood in the ready room, her eyes scanning over the faces of the small team she had handpicked for this mission. Ensign Kim, with her expertise in quantum technology, was the most critical part of the plan. She was the one who would carry the quantum disruptor to the heart of the alien vessel and unleash it. But Kim wouldn't be alone. Nadia, Lieutenant Reed, and a small team of engineers and security personnel would accompany her. Their stealth shuttle sat in the launch bay, waiting, and the air was thick with the weight of their decision. If they succeeded, they would strike a blow to the collective that could echo throughout the galaxy. If they failed, the repercussions would be unimaginable. A desperate gamble. The plan was simple on paper: infiltrate the alien flagship using the Celestial Dawn's cloaking technology, deploy the quantum disruptor in the core of the ship, and escape before the collective could retaliate. But simplicity had a way of slipping away once reality set in. "Commander," Ensign Kim's voice was steady, but the tension was evident. "We're approaching the flagship's outer hull. Our window of opportunity is closing fast. The longer we wait, the more likely they'll detect us." Nadia nodded, turning to face her crew. "We all knew this would be a one-way trip, but Earth is depending on us to make it count. Let's do this." With a final, shared look of determination, the team entered the shuttle and activated the launch sequence. The doors sealed shut, and the ship's engines hummed to life, sending them hurtling toward the alien flagship. A sea of stars, entering the unknown. Outside the shuttle's viewport, the alien flagship loomed larger by the second. Its dark, obsidian-like surface absorbed all light, making it look like a giant shadow among the stars. The Celestial Dawn had already done its job, cloaking the shuttle in near-perfect stealth. Still, every heartbeat felt like an eternity as they glided silently toward their target. "Steady," Lieutenant Reed said, his voice cutting through the quiet. He was in charge of navigation, his hands hovering over the controls as the ship edged closer to the flagship's exterior. "We're almost in range. Prepare for landing." As the shuttle made contact with the flagship's hull, Nadia felt a strange sensation, a pulse of energy running through the ship. She could almost feel the consciousness of the alien vessel pressing against her thoughts, probing the team as though it were aware of their presence. It was unsettling, like being watched by something older and wiser than anything human. "We're in," Reed announced. "No signs of detection yet. We have time." Nadia exhaled, trying to steady her nerves. "Move out. Kim, you're with me. The rest of you, cover our backs. Let's move quickly." The silent halls of the flagship. The shuttle hatch opened with a soft hiss, and the team stepped into the belly of the beast. The interior of the flagship was nothing like the sleek, metallic corridors of human ships. It was organic, almost living, with dark veins running across the walls, pulsing with a faint, eerie light. The air felt heavy, thick with the presence of something far beyond human comprehension. Nadia's heart pounded in her chest as they moved through the passageways. Every step they took seemed to echo unnervingly, as though the ship itself was aware of their intrusion. "It's like it's alive," Kim whispered, her voice barely audible. She was gripping the quantum disruptor, a device designed to send a wave of energy so powerful that it could break the collective's quantum link. Nadia nodded grimly. "It is. This ship is the center of their hive mind. Every inch of it is connected, like a neural network. We need to get to the core." They'd moved in silence, the only sounds the soft thud of their boots on the alien ship's organic flooring. Each hallway felt like a maze, twisting and turning in impossible directions. The team had to rely on the ship's schematic data, scans taken from their stealth approach, to guide them through the labyrinth. A whisper in the dark. As they approached the central core of the flagship, the air grew colder, the strange pulse of energy surrounding them growing stronger. Then, without warning, a voice echoed through the halls, a low, vibrating hum that seemed to come from every direction at once. "You cannot defeat us," the voice boomed, sending a shiver down Nadia's spine. It was not one voice, but many, overlapping and indistinct. It was the voice of the collective. Nadia froze, her breath caught in her throat. "It knows we're here," she muttered. "It's trying to reach into our minds." "We've been prepared for this," Kim said quietly. She had been briefed extensively on the alien mental projections, their attempts to influence and manipulate those who encountered them. "Stay focused. It's just trying to make us doubt ourselves." The voice grew louder, more insistent, as if it were seeping into the very walls of the ship. You cannot stop the collective. Resistance is futile. Your minds will be ours, just as all who came before you. Your species will be a part of us as one. You will be consumed, and your thoughts will become ours. Nadia's fists clenched. She could feel the weight of its words, the cold, undeniable pull of the collective's promise. But she resisted. She would not allow humanity to be absorbed into this hive. She would not let them lose their identity, their essence, the heart of the beast. They reached the core chamber of the flagship, a massive circular room bathed in a pulsating purple glow. In the center of the room was a massive crystalline structure, its surface shifting and morphing like liquid, responding to the very presence of the crew. It was the source of the collective's power, the neural nexus that linked the minds of countless civilizations across the galaxy. Kim stepped forward, her hand outstretched. She moved with the calm precision of a surgeon, knowing that every moment counted. The quantum disruptor was her only weapon, the last hope of preventing humanity from being swallowed up by the collective. Now, Nadia whispered. Kim activated the device, and the room seemed to hold its breath. The disruptor hummed to life, sending a pulse of energy into the crystalline core. For a moment, everything went still. The ship seemed to tremble as if it were reacting to the assault on its very being. Then, with a sudden shockwave, the core exploded in a burst of light, sending a ripple through the ship. The walls cracked, the glowing veins of the ship flickering and dying. The collective's voice fell silent. For the first time in what felt like eternity, the ship was still. The aftermath. Did we do it? Ensign Kim asked, her voice shaky. Nadia didn't reply immediately. She was staring at the now silent, dying core of the ship. The oppressive feeling that had hung over them was gone, replaced by a strange calm. We've broken their hold, Nadia said slowly, her mind still racing. We've severed their connection. The collective is no longer connected. But as they turned to leave, something lingered in the air, an unsettling feeling that they hadn't defeated the collective entirely. Perhaps, like all great forces, the true power of the collective was not in its vessels, but in its collective will.